Hey, everybody, and welcome to Community Matters. We have a great show lined up for you today. I'm Rod Carter. Today's conversation is with a powerful man, a great author, a mindset coach, certified peer support specialist. His name is Timothy Stewart. Let me just first show you a picture of him and some video. Timothy and I actually met at a Black History program at Wake Tech Community College just recently here. And his story immediately stands out of one is transformation, resilience, and purpose. And we're so glad that he's here. He's the author of a book called Free Yourself from Yourself and the founder of TalkManTalk. Timothy, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, thank you very kindly. I appreciate it.
So you have a really powerful journey that you want to share with people. Kind of just tell us a little bit about what led you to your journey and how you got to be where you are today.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from North Carolina. I grew up on a 500-acre farm in Duplin County. And, you know, growing up in that small community, there were values that were taught, but they didn't resonate with me.
Right.
For some reason, I just didn't, I guess, click with my peers. I was raised by older men, and so I grew up quite fast. And I graduated high school, went into the military, but I started smoking marijuana at a very early age, at 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
And because my grandfather, you know, was a businessman in the community, I learned how to mask it very well at an early age. And of course, the progression continued. It went from marijuana to cocaine and on to crack. And for 20-some years of my life, I lived as they call them a productive addict.
Yeah,
right?
like a functioning
addict, as they call
yeah.
it. And it just got to the point where my personal life robbed me of my professional career. I'm a member, a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. I work for IBM. I work for UPS. I spent a number of my professional years of working in corporate America. But at 40 years old, I found myself homeless, hopeless, and penniless. And I was scared.
Yeah,
I was scared. I had went to rehab 11 times. And because I had a daughter, I said, I want to give this thing one more shot. I had given up for me, but I wanted to give my daughter, at least I could say I tried it again, right? For some reason, Rod, I did not want my daughter to grow up and people say, your dad's a crackhead.
Yeah.
And so in that 12th rehab, the light bulb came on, and what I discovered was the drugs and the alcohol were not my problem.
What was that thing that clicked in you right then that said, this is it? And I say that, and I don't want to interrupt, but somebody out there is watching this, and they may be struggling with the same thing.
Absolutely,
and that's why you're doing what you do, right?
Absolutely, 100%. It was something inside of me. I remembered like it was yesterday. They took me I had to sleep in the homeless shelter at the Salvation Army for 2 weeks for a bed to become available at the treatment center. And so when they took me there that night, they took me to the chow hall, and I was sitting in there. It was after people had been served dinner. I was in there by myself, and it was like this voice said, drugs and alcohol are not your problem. Because I got mad. Rod, I got mad.
Yeah.
I had been in rehab before. I had been homeless before, but now I'm 1,200 miles away from home. I left New York and went to St. Louis and had no money. When I landed in St. Louis, I had 2 pair of pants, 2 shirts, and $8 in my pocket. Didn't know anybody, had never been there, to try to start all over again. And I said, God, why does this keep happening to me? And this revelation said, drugs and alcohol are not your problem. And I was shocked.
Yeah.
Because that's what I had been fighting, right? It wasn't like I had been clean. I would get clean and I would go back.
So you assumed that it was just the addiction to the
because I was pretty smart.
Stuff.
I mean, I've been in the Air Force. I've worked in corporate America. So my thinking, it can't be my thinking.
Right.
But it was.
But it was your thinking. Tell me what that means. You say it couldn't be your thinking, but it was your thinking. What does that mean?
What that means is that I learned some things along the way. For an example, I was taught that it's okay to do a little wrong, just don't get caught. Well, that's bad information.
That is very bad information. But I've heard that my whole life too.
Yeah.
I've heard that too.
But I practiced it. I mean, I had my whole network growing up. That's what they did. They did this and they did that, right?
Right.
And it was like, okay, if that's what you want to do, right, just learn how to not get caught. And when my mom and dad would chastise me, my thought wasn't what I did was wrong. It was I didn't do it well enough not to get caught.
Mm.
And I followed that philosophy until I was 40 years old. But by that time, I'm caught up in the grips of something that's much bigger. But once the light bulb came on and I realized that my thinking was the issue, now I got to the root cause. It's kind of like I often ask people, what's the best way to keep the weeds out of your lawn? Well, some people say spray them, pull them up. Those are two ways, but the best way is sow the grass seed so thick that the weeds
That they don't have.
can't take
They
root.
don't even have time to take root. You choke them out before they even get started.
Exactly. That's why we overseed and aerate. But what I really discovered, Rod, was my life was in what I call a state of chaos. Chaos doesn't mean that what I need is not available. It's like our society today. Same thing, state of chaos. It's not like what we need is not available.
Right.
It's things are just out of order. Right? Chaos.
So how did you then put everything back in that order? What did that moment look like for you?
It's a process. It didn't happen at that moment. At that very moment, I did some hope came back into me because, and I'll tell you, this felt like God speaking directly to me. When I had this revelation that drugs and alcohol are not your problem, your way of thinking is your problem. And so I started studying the Bible. Now, I grew up in church. I did. I didn't understand a lot of it. I really didn't.
Yeah.
I had never read the Bible, but when this happened, I became a student of Scripture. And I studied and I studied. And what I found out was the answer to my solution or to my dilemma was found in that book, right? And there's a lot of talk about what that book came from and who wrote the book, but the answers were there.
Yeah.
And it's called the Kingdom Message, right? What my life was in a state of disorder, right? And the only thing that creates order is law.
Yeah.
And I had to unlearn and relearn how to live. I could exist. I could survive.
But that's different than living.
Live.
I had a friend growing up, it was my mom's friend. She used to say, if 40 catches you a fool, you'll be a fool the rest of your life.
Yeah.
What happened that it was at 40, you think, that moment? Because it feels like, you've done something for so long. After a while, you're like, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
Like at 40, how did you turn that corner?
Well, again, my daughter was the greatest motivator, but I'm not a quitter. I grew up around men and, nothing was supposed to, I guess, I didn't want anything to defeat me.
Right.
Right. And I guess that's why I kept, going to rehab. Like, this thing is not going to beat me.
Not
I
gonna
can
get me,
outsmart
right.
this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I finally had to realize that I couldn't outsmart it. I can't outsmart life.
Yeah.
And what changed my life is I got introduced to 12-step program. And those 12-step programs, people think they're about drugs and alcohol, but it's really a design for living, right? And there are principles, the same principles that are in that book that I just mentioned, that program is based on, right? Honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, discipline, forgiveness, acceptance, awareness, and gratitude. Those 12 principles changed my life.
You described addiction as cunning, baffling, and powerful.
Yes.
What do people misunderstand most? Is that what it is, that it's not about the substance?
That's it. See, in our society, we have a lot of programs, like they say that the opioid is an epidemic. Well, it's kind of like the guns. If a gun is laying on that table, it can't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
It's the human thinking behind it. You know, there's a great use for drugs in our society. I just abused them.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Yeah.
and addiction is one of those things that it's the only disease that tells you you don't have a problem.
That is true. Never thought about that, but that is very true.
Yeah, it says, "Oh, you're okay."
Yeah.
Until
You got this.
you got
can
this,
handle
you
this.
can handle this.
Yeah.
And it's you know, we are creatures of habit.
Right.
And substances are addictive. You know, our bodies get addicted to substances, and sometimes it's not even the substance; it's the lifestyle.
That's true.
I've seen people get caught up and get clean, not using, you know, abusing drugs or alcohol or whatever, but the lifestyle, right? It becomes habitual.
They're so used to doing this in that environment.
Yes, the obsession
that they
and
can't
the
stop.
compulsion.
Yeah. You're a certified peer support specialist.
Yes, sir.
What role does the community play in the recovery for other folk?
Well, I think that it goes back to the very basics. That's what I coach, Rod, is the very basics. Horses run best with horses. Dogs bark best with dogs. Cats meow best with cats.
Yeah.
Because I've gone through what I've gone through, I can sit down and talk to someone who is now struggling, caught up in the grips of active addiction, and look them in the eye and say, I know what that feels like.
You've been there.
I've been there. Let me now share with you what I did to help, not what you should do, but what I did to help me get on the other side of that. Because the principles, that's what I love about a principle, Rod. I got to go there.
Yeah.
Principles, you know, we don't like in our society to use the word law, but law is the foundation of creation. Everything functions by law.
Yeah.
Law protects us. It serves us. And a principle means first law. Man didn't create them. I didn't create honesty or hope or courage. They were here when we landed here. So they are inherent in creation. They are universal. They'll work the same in New York, LA, or Japan. They are non-partial. They'll work for black people, white people, short people, tall people, anybody. And they're permanent.
Yeah.
They won't ever change.
And, you know, it's not the law that's the problem, it's the breaking it that's the problem anyway.
Absolutely.
So, you know, as people look at the screen now, they're going to see TalkManTalk right there at the bottom. Tell me about TalkManTalk and where that came from.
Well, that happened at 45 years old. You know, at 40 years old, I got clean. At 45, I went from the homeless shelter to now living in a 2,400 square foot home. I had never been clean that long since I was 12 years old. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I had this revelation of, you always like sharing information. Why don't you become a speaker? And so I've always been a Mike Jordan fan, right? And so when Mike came into the league, he was jump man jump. I said, I'm going to be talk man talk.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I discovered my purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when your gifts and your purpose align, you can't do anything but stay right in that. Let's talk about mindset, emotional health, addiction awareness. How and why is that, or should that be a part of a curriculum for schools? Well,
here's the thing. Behavior never lies. And what we see in our school systems, and I'm so grateful for my new course, Unlock Your Greatness, and some school districts are embracing that course. It teaches individuals how to make decisions based on principles, right? Behavior management, if you will. And that's, you know, we have to deal with reality. And the reality is there are a lot of children in environments that don't support these 12 principles, right? But they have to come from somewhere. In my home school district, 2 young people OD'd, and it hurt, right? And I was given a training session for some counselors, and I asked them, if you saw a person and you suspected they were under the influence of a substance, what would you do? And they said, well, I don't know. And I thought, here's where we need to fix right here. We need to have a clear-cut approach, right, to how to address that scenario. Here's a young person that's on a road to destruction. As leaders, we don't just stare at problems.
Right.
We pursue solutions.
Right. You try to figure out how to get those problems fixed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You talk about this journey for you starting really at 12.
Yes.
Is there an age that you think is appropriate to start talking about addiction and addiction issues in school, or is there an age that you think maybe is too young?
I don't think there is a age limit. But here's the thing. Here's what I would talk about is how to become a responsible, productive member of society.
Right.
Right? And when we start teaching individuals these 12 principles, interjecting them into the culture, the school district, they put posters up, right? Because faith comes by hearing, and we see. And so now these 12 principles create not only inner peace for that individual, but common unity in those school communities. So now the parent, the educator, the counselors, they are all talking about honesty or hope. So now the message is consistent. And like McDonald's, the most...
You know what? Don't matter where you go. People think they're all owned by the same people.
The
but
Big Mac.
Because the marketing is the same.
It's consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the philosophy behind the 12 principles.
In your estimation, how can educators spot issues, with young people faster?
Behavior, right? Behavior never lies. Behavior, and Rod, I know sometimes, as a news anchor, you have to cover stories that are just, it hurts your heart.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
And so we see in our society, I mean, when I was growing up, you never saw a kid attack a teacher. You
did not.
That is a problem.
And you rarely saw kids attack each other.
Yeah.
Not to the magnitude, and it's getting younger and younger and younger.
And so what we have to do is start addressing it from a proactive approach, not reactive, right? And we start integrating, when a person's behavior doesn't align with these principles that we promote, we sit them down and we say, hey, what happened here? Because the one thing I love about what I coach, Rod, is you don't have to get it perfect. We practice these principles, right? And even myself, right? I've been practicing them now, Rod, and that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because I know they work. 22 years now. April the 30th is 22 years free from active addiction. If these principles can take somebody like me crawling around on the floor, living on an animalistic level to becoming a responsible, productive member of society, they will work for anybody.
Absolutely. You developed a curriculum for schools. Talk to me about that and what that is designed to do a little bit more. We mentioned it just a moment ago.
Yes. So the course is called Unlock Your Greatness. Now, in my professional career, I've been an admissions advisor for 20 years now, right? And what I discovered after listening to the same scenarios, individuals who invested time and money for training, and now they were miserable because they made a decision based on, economic potential or whatever, and not their gift. See, it was my gift, and when I discovered my purpose, that helped create the discipline I needed to become the person that I am. And so I said, wait a minute, there's something similar here. And as I did some research, I found out that the statistics show that 60% of the people who graduate from college are now doing something different than what they went to school for, which means, and 33% drop out, which means we didn't know why. We didn't know what to go to school for. And so this course is designed to, number one, create personal development and help a person discover or identify their gift, their natural gift. That gift was given to us to fulfill a purpose, and we are to function by principles. So we were created for a purpose, packed with potential to function by principles.
Yeah.
And so that's what the program does.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the program. And because I know you're in one school now, but you're trying to get it to to
Yes.
many more schools. So we'll take a break, come back and talk about that, and we'll talk about where people can find your book as well. So give us 1 minute. Welcome back, everyone. We are so excited. We're talking with Timothy Stewart, and he is the author of Free Yourself from Yourself. First of all, tell us where people will be able to find this great book, and tell us a little bit more about why it's important that people have it.
Well, that book can be found on Amazon. It's on Amazon. If you type in "Free Yourself from Yourself," Tim Stewart, it's not a bestseller. Okay, you hadn't reached that status at this point. And you can also find it on my website, TalkManTalk.com. Why it's important is identification. You mentioned it earlier. There are people who are going through the same scenarios or lifestyle or subjected to the same environments that I was at a young age. And when a person knows that someone has been in their shoes, they're more apt to listen. Right? And the purpose of the book was to show you're not alone, right? And I get very transparent with my story, right, in my book. My book is kind of like, it's like I tell my story, and then I show how I use these 12 principles to change my life.
To kind of guide people into being able to change theirs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I love this question, but what's one daily habit or mindset shift that can immediately start to change someone's life? Who, like, we talk about it. Somebody is probably watching right now thinking, how do I change my life? What's the first step? What's one first step people can take?
You got to get honest. I had to get honest that for so many years, and my mom would tell you, I refused to say I was an addict. I did not want to accept that.
Why? Did it feel like it was a defeat?
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt like if I say that, boy, I'm done.
Yeah. Because you're like, I've lost control then, so I can control this now.
Right. Exactly. There you go. That's exactly correct.
That's why it all starts right there.
Exactly. But I had to get honest that, you know what, my grades are not where I know I could be, or, my marriage is not where I know I could be. That's the other thing I love about these 12 principles is that they are valid in any room. The boardroom, the locker room, the living room, the classroom, even the bedroom.
Right.
They're valid. So I could take one program and apply it in every area of my life.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. And, I guess a word of advice or a word of hope for people. You're not by yourself.
Right. You're not.
And I think people sometimes feel like they're out there on an island by themselves when they're dealing with these
isolation.
things.
And that's the part of the component of addiction is it wants to isolate you, right? So now it can destroy you.
Yeah. All right, I got some rapid fire questions for you. Ready?
Yes, sir.
One word to describe your journey.
One word to describe my journey.
I know that's hard. It's hard to put it into one word.
Purpose.
Purpose. It's a good one. That's a good one. Morning routine must have.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Biggest lesson that addiction taught you.
Pain.
All right, I said rapid fire, but I want to stay there. What tell me more about that.
Pain is a great motivator. We actually, as humans, we do more to avoid pain than to seek pleasure, whether we think about it or not.
That's deep. Never thought about that. But that makes sense.
Absolutely. Pain.
Yeah.
Addiction robbed me of so many things that I still I didn't get a chance to be there for my daughters on a lot of occasions.
Right.
I can't go back and get that back. And it's still painful sometimes, even today.
But you, your daughters, y'all have taken where you are and have moved. I mean, it's been 22 years, right?
Well, it's been 22 years, but
it's still a tough journey.
It's still some days. It's still tough.
That's understandable. What does success mean to you today?
purpose fulfilled. See, that's how I describe success. Purpose fulfilled.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation, a powerful conversation. I'm so glad that you stopped me and said, "Hey, get me on your show."
Well, I was listening to you
I want
speak,
you here.
And I can hear your passion for the community and, what you do. And I was like, we share a similar type of heart, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. So, one heart recognizes another heart.
That is true. I learned a long time ago, when your purpose and your gifts meet, that's powerful.
That's like Michael. Like, everybody knew where the ball was going.
Right.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And they still couldn't stop him.
Nope.
Right.
Try as they might.
And I do these things like this. I'll share this, Rod, is like in my office. I have Mike, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Wayne Gretzky, Muhammad Ali. I have them in my office.
Yeah.
You know why? What do they all have in common? They're all champions. So that's my environment.
Yeah. You surround yourself with where you want to be and where you are.
Yeah. And it's not rocket science. We can get so deep sometimes. It's too deep.
My grandmother used to say, "We the company we keep." You remember that?
Absolutely.
And
there was a lot of truth in that.
It is.
But you didn't understand it. You had to unpack it. But the truth is still there.
Yeah, you got to get a little older. You know what else they used to say? I mean, it's the truth. You know what they used to say, too?
I am getting older.
By and by. By and by.
By.
And I never understood that as a kid. I'm like, what does that mean? But now I totally understand it.
Absolutely.
The older you get, the more you get knowledge.
That
understanding. You'll learn it by and by.
Yeah, absolutely.
Timothy Stewart, powerful story, powerful message. Man, I'm so glad you had a chance to stop by and we had a chance to talk.
Yeah.
You guys pick up the book on Amazon or his website, TalkManTalk.com. It's for yourself, from yourself. Get a copy of that. And I know you're going to have your curriculum in other schools too. So we'll
unlock your greatness.
We'll circle back when we get to that. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for joining us for another edition of Community Matters, and have a great day.